Good night. So, what is mankind's greatest fear? And I am discussing this tonight because of a question that I asked probably a month or a month and a half ago on my pages. And I realized that there were so many different responses. Some said heights, some said failure. I believe some also discussed things in relation to, you know, things you might do like exams or failure was the major one that I saw responses from persons saying about. People said the unknown. Um, some said death. And the interesting thing is that it's not quite any of those things. Even though, generally speaking, the major fears that people tend to have are around failure. Some people even fear success. Some people do fear the unknown. Some people do fear criticism. And some people also have fears in relation to things around them. So you may, you know, have a fear of insects and bugs. You may have a fear specifically of eight-legged, nine-legged creatures, arachnophobia, spiders, and those sort of things. You may have a fear of water or deep water, which is a very deep, uh, kind of fear, maybe because it's something that you went out into water once and you had an issue with that. And these are what the psychologists call phobias. When it gets deeper and it's in relation to something that you have in a societal way, you may develop something called social anxiety. And there are other and many different types of fears that people may have. But the truth is that when you were just born as a youngster coming up, you never really had any fears. You think about it. If you ever have children and or mentor kids and or have kids that you babysit or around like your nieces and your nephews, you see that they're fairly fearless going around their environment trying to learn and understand some things. And the only fears that they actually have are a fear of loud noises. If you go like this or do something around a child and they don't know where it's coming from, what it is, they may start crying and wonder what's happening. And they're also fear of falling down. So if the stage in which they're learning about themselves and moving and walking around in the environment, then they may be afraid. But they still get back up and try moving. That's why we're all adults who are walking, moving beings, because we went through the stage of going through that fear and overcoming it. And the truth is that life is like that, isn't it? That we go through some things, we have some issues, we sometimes fall down, we sometimes have the challenges, and we try to find out what's happening. But over time, we do not sometimes stretch to get over them because we feel that either we're inadequate or we feel that over time we can push ourselves to move to where we can be despite where we are. And that's not what God says, importantly. And that's also not who you are. If a child, as you were, is able to over time learn to walk, having the fear of falling and eventually getting up and walking over and over again, then you as an adult should be able to do some things in the atmosphere. But what do scholars actually say fear is? What do they say are our top fears? And the truth is that there was a 1973 study done by, let me project the screen to try to get the right namings of these things. Hold on a second. Can you see this? And it says, put some comments in if you may. This is obviously streaming, but it will stream over and over and be projected and sent all over the place later. If you have any questions, additionally, you can share this with your friends on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. And if you have any questions, please put it in the comments. So as you can see here, I'm looking actually at a communication research report And the title of this is about, is public speaking really more fear than death? Done by Dwyer and Davidson in 2012. And this was because there was a study that was done in 1973. Let me scroll on to try to show you. I'm hoping you can see all these things here. That says the purpose of this study, which is the study I'm reading, was to investigate the genesis of the 1973 R.H. Broskin Associates American Fears study, appearing in the London Sunday Times and often reported in communication textbooks as "People Fear Public Speaking More Than Death." So in 1973, the Broskin Associates, through a few persons, including Watson, I believe, did a study, and they found that public speaking was feared more than any other thing in comparison to even death. And so this study, which was done in 2012, was a way to kind of get a more modern approach and finding for it. And you'll be interested to know that it actually more or less stated the same thing. And let me scroll down to give you the conclusion, because it's a few pages. So obviously, we're not going to read the entire thing. But when you scroll down, excuse me, let me try to find the part that before the conclusion where it says a few things. So this study looked at 2,978 common fears, and on average, people had 3.65 fears. Participants in the 1973 study chose a total of 6,304 common fears, and on average at that time, they had 2 point something 2.48 fears. So even though in this more modern study, there were less fears to look through to study, there were more fears by each person. That's one thing. And the second thing is that I'm trying to look for the part. These are the rankings of them. I'll get back to that in a minute. Well, where is it? There's a part that speaks to the fact, and I'll send the link in the description. Here it is. In the 1973 study, the Broskin adult sample reported speaking before a group, heights, insects, and financial problems as the top 4 fears. Speaking in front of a group, heights, insects, and financial problems. And currently, the top fears are speaking before a group, debt, financial problems. Top 3. And the conclusion was, scrolling down, when it comes to ranking top fears, students selected debt as a top fear, followed by public speaking and financial problems. So is public speaking the number one fear? The answer was yes, because it was the one that was selected most by students compared to the other fears. And the table that I was showing you was comparing that 1973 study to the 2010-2012 published one. And you see speaking before a group here, ranked 1, as well as one in 1973. The others, like financial problems, debt, and loneliness, are the other top 4s currently. So looking at all of those things, can you imagine that you are thinking about life and looking at some things? I'm sure if they did a study now, probably death and loneliness would appear a little bit more, yeah, because of the nature of what we're going through because of COVID-19. But if it is that we have this issue in terms of, one, if you think about public speaking, it is usually, one, you have to think about something cognitively, produce it in an intelligible manner, and present it in front of persons. So it's usually not the reading and the comprehension and the speaking. It is how you think you're being perceived, as well as being seen by others, as well as you think or worry that maybe what you express may not be understood, or you may be misconstrued, or you may be bombarded by critical persons who come to say things badly about you, and other things like that. Those are the things that encompass this fear, right? And I have seen, and I'm pretty sure you've seen as well, that a lot of persons who excel better in life, move forward more, have mastered that skill of communication enough, using their productive speaking abilities so that they can do some things. You need speaking for many things. If you're not communicating well with your family members and those that you love and those who are around you, then you will have issues, will have contentions, and or something will happen and you don't express it, and there's chaos around what you're doing. You can see it all the time, and you have also seen it in your life as well if you really reflect on it. Those who do a lot of things in relation to life, if you have to go to an interview, you have to learn how to speak and present yourself and who you are well. If you are a business owner, if you need to do some things for the business, you need to learn how to speak either to your employees and or to an investor and or to the customers that you're coming in to try to get sales or revenues from, right? If it is that you are uh, living a life of doing things for communication, then you have to master that skill. A pastor, a lawyer, a politician, a teacher, an educator, they all need these skills. But it's needed for many other persons in life to do some of the things that they need to do. So it's fascinating to me that that is the common fear, public speaking. The others, as you saw listed, were like death, loneliness, and financial problems, which all plague us. But it's really linked to this problem that we have of how people perceive us and worrying about failure and critical thoughts coming back to us. Life and death, it says in Proverbs, let me try to project this, chapter 18, verse 21, is in the power of the tongue. Let me try to find the Bible scripture there. Yeah, here it is. Death and life are in the, I'm reading from the KJV version. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. It speaks earlier about increasing of your lips shall be filled with things for your belly, and who find it a wife find it a good thing, so forth, so forth, so forth. The purpose of this chapter was talking about desires of man and how he uses his mouth and his lips as a tool to get some things done in the atmosphere. And people do not understand the gifting that God gave them when he allowed them to be able to speak and utter things. You cannot go to the store and the supermarket unless you may have a speech impediment or issue. And even them will have something written down and or another way that they can communicate to get some stuff done, right? So similarly in your life, to get things done and to move forward, you have to utter and you have to speak and you have to learn to overcome this fear of what may happen if you speak and some things that you hope does not happen. And if you think very carefully about it, the persons who you see doing things and are able to get some things done in life, communication is key for them. Even if they don't get it right all the time, a lot of times these people are called enough or chatty or or fast or whatever, but they usually have mastered the skill. One of my mentors calls himself as having the gift of the jab, the gab, or the GAB, not JAB, gab, speaky spokey. And it's not a resource wise thing, or somebody who goes and they're using it to manipulate people. People have done that in a psychological way. But once you start to master your tongue, your mouth, and your communication, and you start to overcome that main mankind fear, things will start to open up for you. Your life can be beautiful. Well, learn to communicate. It says a man's gift will make room for him. But sometimes you have to speak and let people know what you can do. That's also a proverb. Do not allow fear and the things around you to stop you from going and doing what you can do. Learn how to control some of the ways you see life, and how things are coming back to you. There will be criticism. You will fail along the way. It always happens. But do not be shackled by these challenges. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Do not allow the very nature of this greatest fear of mankind to stop you from achieving what you know you can do. Blessings. See you next week.